Hello and welcome to today's virtual Coffee Talk webinar. My name is Margaret and I will be your web host for today. We have a few housekeeping announcements and then I will introduce our speakers. In order to earn CPE credit for today's session, please stay connected to the webcast for the entire program and participate by responding to at least 3 of the 5 interactive questions. Second, there will be a course evaluation which will open once the webcast has ended. And with that, I'll introduce our speakers. Kevin Jacobs is a managing director with Alvarez Marsal Tax in Washington, D.C. and the National Tax Office Practice Leader. He brings more than 15 years of experience in tax matters in both public and private sector. Cody Dixon is a managing director with Alvarez Marsal Tax LLC in Dallas. He brings more than 16 years of experience helping clients design and implement tax technology solutions. And Betty Ross is a lead product manager with Wolters Kluwer Tax and Accounting. She will be showing us today how to find additional answers and resources using CCH Answer Connect. Now, Kevin, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Margaret. And thanks, everyone, for joining our latest virtual coffee talk on generative AI. When we had this conversation last year, and in technology terms, what seems like decades ago, we were talking about what is the cutting edge of generative AI, and we have to appreciate that some of you may not have heard about it, and so we'll talk about first what is it, and then give you an update on what has happened and how have we seen it actually be applied. What are the pros? What are the cons? What should we really know about generative AI? And so you'll see discussions from my colleague, Cody Dixon, who's very aware, very entrenched in generative AI, and always trying to help push the needle as far as how we can efficiently use it at A&M, go into like, what's the buzz? Is it helpful or is it hype? Where are some of the traps for the unwary? And what should people do as far as like, you start your journey? Everyone has to start. Ultimately, if you're not doing it, you're falling behind because everyone else is doing it, but you also need to be mindful of what you should be doing, right? It's not for everyone and it's not for everything. And so appreciating the current status, and that's a current status as opposed to where we were just months ago, which can also be said where we were weeks ago or where we were days ago, really is going to be so important for everyone to know. And that's why it will also be very important to hear from Betty as far as like what's going on Answer Connect and how CCH is planning to embed or continues to embed AI. So with that, Cody, why don't we start talking about what is generative AI?
Hi, Kevin. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, and again, even though when we went back a year to this this conversation, it still makes sense to come in and talk a little bit about generative AI. Not that the definition has changed too much, but there's been many changes in the AI space over the last year, what we covered, and we kind of broken these into 2 buckets. We'll look at AI today, and we'll try to look a little bit into the future and look at what AI tomorrow looks like. So AI today, things that are very common within tax practice or even within AI, the practice of AI right now is looking at predictive AI and generative AI. So predictive AI, think of this as your traditional machine learning model. You've got single use cases for this, things where you're bringing your own data to make decisions or predictions off of that data versus training on public data that's available for you. We'll go through each one of these and talk about a little use case from a tax perspective of where that is. And then generative AI, this is really AI that is really kind of designed to replicate human behavior. So whether that's generating text, whether that's generating code, generating images, just generating content that we would expect based off of a large language model of data that it's been trained upon. So we'll talk a little bit about those, where that fits in the tax area, tax function today. And then a couple areas where we'll get into where we think things are going in light of these technologies is looking at AI agents. What is an AI agent? How to use or deploy an AI agent. So think of AI agents as breaking down some of the generative AI capabilities into discrete functions that are chained together so that your AI agents can accomplish things. And we'll go through a couple examples of those as well. And then the humanoid AI, which is not going to get a whole lot of talk on this, but I know a lot of people have expressed, or at least I've heard concerns about AI taking their jobs. So humanoid AI would be taking your seat as well. So not necessarily a big threat with respect to the tax profession, but with the emergence of some of the technologies that are coming out there, especially with announcements that we've seen in advanced robotics, this is going to become more common across our generative AI or AI landscape. So with that, let's look at a couple predictive AI use cases. So these are your traditional classification models, and a couple examples here where really you have a singular function that's designed to give you a particular output. So in this case, we have some state exemption certificates down there on the left. So in this instance, you're really trying to read and extract specific text and put it into a very defined format. And what this does is it's not generating any new content. It's using a host of pre-trained data that's there beforehand to help you identify different elements of the exemption certificate and then classify them appropriately. So some other use cases we see that for, so if you're, if you're very inquisitive and you're dealing with a lot of different trial balances, you may have a standard chart of accounts that you're trying to take multiple trial balances and classify the information there. And you might use years and years worth of classification data that you've done in order to build out a machine learning model so that when you get a new acquisition, you can take that information into your model and then it can auto assign, or at least first draft auto assign the classification of the trial balance accounts. Similar type example that you see within fixed assets. Every year you're adding new additions to your fixed asset portfolio and you're making a classification determination. So whether it's 5-year, 3-year, 7, 10, 15, 20, doesn't whatever class life you're determining for these assets, and then those assets have a set of attributes associated with them. So this is an example where you can utilize machine learning, look at all your historical classifications and come up with a way to classify assets as they're placed in service in the current year based off of the historical models. And so one of the things that, even though we are talking about generative AI and predictive AI is more your traditional machine learning models, but there have been significant advances in these. So you can see there's opportunities for you to leverage these from a compliance standpoint, whether you're using these machine learning models to extract information or populate information. There's great ways in which you can, these predictive AI tools have seen advances along with generative AI that may be applicable for your tax function. On the right side, you can see here, we've got a Schedule K1 going through and extracting information, which we would put into a usable format for compliance purposes. So in our workbooks and things going forward. So you think through these predictive AIs, as these technologies advance, they provide a lot of opportunities for you as well.
And then, just to note, sorry, I mean, just to note, this is really helpful when you start looking at the magnitude of data that it can be used, Cody. And I do want to note, we are sharing information on the screen just to assure people this is not actual client data. These are all dummy forms, and so have no concerns about confidentiality. We take that seriously, but really, this is just a great example of, what can you do? Right, and where do you see it? And as you can see, even just on the K1, it's like, okay, hey, we're going to upload all this stuff, let's extract it. It makes data entry, processing, and evaluation that much easier just from the extraction.
Yeah, and then kind of along those lines, moving next over to generative AI. The generative AI, these are. This is a quick example of a scenario where you potentially could use this. Let's say you have a fixed asset portfolio and you have all of your asset additions for the year. You could actually go in and say, well, please generate a Python script or even VBA that would go through and do a mid-quarter analysis to see if you need to adjust the tax classification or methods associated with that. So, this is an area where when we think about generative AI, generating code to do analysis, What we've learned across A&M is after making some generative AI tools available, if you had folks are very proficient at Excel and they've written a lot of VB, you'll find that, or Visual Basic code, you'll find that they are going into the language model tools to help generate those codes and assist them in building out functionality that's associated with it. So, this is one example that we're seeing our tax technologists work through is generating code to do analysis, assisting those in that area. And then, there's a whole host of other additional use cases for this. You think about doing first drafts for memos or analyzing or summarizing information and other things down. Really being a knowledge base for someone who knows nothing. So if you reach a topic where you don't know a lot about it, it's a great place to start to get some content creation and then continue your research going forward on there. So predictive AI, generative AI, those are really kind of the tools that are available to us today as tax practitioners. And then, looking into what's in the future, what's tomorrow's AI look like. And this is where like an agent AI or an agent framework can be really useful, and you're starting to see AI agents deployed now. And then I think it's a matter of time before you start seeing more tax-specific AI agents. So, but specifically an AI agent is performed to do specific tasks, make decisions, and communicate with other agents. So when you think about the tax practice where it's broken into different disciplines, where you have some specialty and you have specialists and then you have generalists, this is an area where it's kind of taking the same mindset of breaking down the AI component into its discrete functions and then chaining them together to do a series of actions. And so on the screen here, we have some documentation from Microsoft's AutoGen, which is a AI agent creation framework that they use, where you can see in some of these graphics that you've got different use cases for AI agents. And so you may have scenarios where you may want to extract data from an ERP system. That may be one agent. You may want to analyze data. That may be another agent. That agent's going to pass on additional information to another agent who might read and write a response associated with it. Maybe you have a decision in the process that's more language-based, and you can put that into the process that's there. And then at the end of the process, as highly recommended, you do what we're seeing within the agent framework here is a human in the loop. So if you look at the example A1 math solving problem in the orange box, you have right there, you have this idea where you have a human in the loop, where essentially you're asking it for the next parameters to move forward. So you don't have AI taking over the process or fully completing the process. There's a methodology there where the human's there to help kind of dictate that and ensure the accuracy of these types of frameworks or these types of AI agent workflows as well. But this is where I really see things going. You're starting to see this in other industries, even outside of tax, is really kind of layering into this AI framework or AI agent framework to help assist with process flow, as well as just a variety of different tasks across the tax function. And then, our last one, just to talk a little bit, just very briefly, just to show you, there's been a lot of advances in the robotics as well as AI. Over there on the far right, Optimus Gen 2 from Tesla was released in the last year, really showing some really unique capabilities around this, and then potentially looking at not just like generative AI and AI tools as aiding well, let's say a white collar workforce, but also you're looking at blue collar workforce, looking at AI agents to put them in certain roles for manufacturing, healthcare, other opportunities that are out there. And we'll see more of that and more advancements as not just the generative AI capabilities and AI capabilities advance, but also robotics as well.
Great. So with that, Cody, we're going to launch into our first polling question, which again, you do need to answer in order to qualify for CPE credit. Are you using generative AI tools today within your tax function? And that could be ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, custom tools, or anything else. Yes, no, waiting on approval, or working on plans. You have about a minute to answer. But I guess, Cody, there are a handful here, right? ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, custom tools. And when you're thinking of these generative AI tools, I know we're going to talk about this on starting the journey, but like, where do you begin in the sense of, I have no clue what generative AI tool I want to start looking at. Do you have like a 30-second crash course on what I should be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, so I think within your organization, the first thing that you need to be thinking about is security and making sure you're compliant with your internal policies that are there. Let's say, even if you don't have an internal policy, then that's something that may be your very first starting point in terms of how you branch into that. What we are seeing is a much wider adoption of Microsoft Copilot. That seems to be the easiest one for barrier to entry with respect to generative AI tools. But for the most part, the very first thing is to educate yourself. And for that, it's a matter of talking to a professional who knows a lot more about it, or going and finding a breakdown of different tools that are available to you. And then at this point where we are, I would say I would be shocked if the members on this call, their IT organization, don't have some form of PSA for them to look at as a way of what's available and accessible to them within their organization. But I think that that's the first place to start, with education and then internal IT.
Great. So why don't we turn to what updates we have since our last virtual coffee talk?
So there's been a lot that's transpired over the last year. One of the areas where we're seeing get pushed more and more when anytime there's a new release of a large language model, whether that's from OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Meta, we're seeing an increased push of context window. And a context window is just the amount of data or information that a AI or large language model or generative AI language model can ingest. And so right now that started at, or whenever going back a year, that was around 4,000 to 3,000 tokens. And now that's all the way up to 1 million tokens in some language models. So you're seeing a dramatic increase in that. And how does that impact, potential tax compliance? Well, think of it as you can push more information into the models, and the more information you give it, the more likely you are to get a response that's accurate, or one that you would give it a thumbs up for. So the increased context window continues to be an advancement and continues to push that's out there. With OpenAI's GPT model 4.0, you're starting to see multimodal language models that are out there. So this is not just receiving or prompting in text, but it could be audio, it could be visuals, it could be a variety of different content that you could push into the language model and then interface with it from that perspective. And so that part's interesting. If you've ever received a PDF that you can't modify, but you need to modify, or you need something along those lines, this is where loading that in as it is static and finding interfacing with it could be a very unique opportunity that's there. So multimodal, and that's going to continue to advance, where you're not just typing in the prompt, but you're also interfacing it with other elements of data or other modes. One of the areas that I think is very interesting that is relevant for tax, one of the things that we've done within A&M is we've deployed a lot of our internal AI tools globally. And one of the use cases that we received back is we have a lot of folks where maybe English is their second language. They're able to kind of create content in their own language and then have language models converted over. It's a very interesting use case that's out there. And what we're seeing now is that language models are expanding their data training sets to be more than or in addition to largely English-based content that's out there. So So that should be a very interesting dynamic, especially if you're a firm with a global footprint. Looking at ways to kind of continue to break down the language barrier that's out there. And then, the last one, it's one of those things where, there are a lot of really positive things about AI, but there's also been some concerns that have happened in the last year. So, one of the things that recently came out, Microsoft in their latest release of AI tools mentioned the new version of Windows, where you're going to have this recall feature that will be automatically turned on, and it captures screenshots, and then it's able to help understand and guide you through certain processes based off of what you're seeing on screen. And then there was a lot of uproar about that, and AI taking screenshots behind the scenes and keeping track of things that are there. So Microsoft did actually roll this back and turn this to an opt-in feature as opposed to the default feature that's out there. If you were around whenever Google released Gemini, there was a lot of prompting and things that came out that really were kind of exposing biases in the data and that are out there. And so there tends to be some increased concerns with not only just the generative AI as a whole, but also looking at the data set that they're trained on. So we've seen an increase, in my opinion, of technology advances, but also an increase of concern that goes along that as well.
And it's great to really see the expansions and the advances. I do want to touch on, I guess, two things. One is in the expanded language capabilities. Obviously, it's different when you're having someone that's a native speaker versus a computer. It may actually read a little bit differently. So having someone actually reread it or make sure, like, I can't just copy and paste it. But also, there are potential, and this goes back to what is the policy considerations that you have. But what do you think as far as, okay, when I'm implementing this beyond just the screen capturing, are we, there's a lot of AI that possibly takes notes and records things. And is that allowed? Is that not allowed? Are you in a one-party or two-party consent state? So I guess that sort of leads, Cody, to where are we in the regulation process of AI as it applies? Because obviously it's going to you're going to tell me a state-by-state basis.
Well, yes. I mean, I think in the U.S. here, you kind of have a state-by-state cases. I think as this kind of slide here kind of indicates here, the interesting side, just maybe to step back and address your comment, is there's definitely a watchful eye on what AI can do and what it is doing. And then a lot of these states, you may see scenarios where AI has crept into court cases and they've been thrown out, or there's been reactive legislation that's been enacted as a result of that. Generally speaking, at the federal as well as at the global level, things are a little bit slow to adopt. I think there's concerns, but not so much, policies actually being pushed out there, although there are still some policies that are out there and guidelines to follow. But the challenge, I think, for a lot of this is that, the regulation is not moving at the speed of the advancements within AI. So I think that a lot of the regulation still tends to be very reactive that's there. But you are starting to see this, at least in the States, where you have enacted and or proposed legislations within the states, but not really across the board at the federal level at this point. So, but again, what I would say is that this is on the horizon. I think that as we work through these types of tools and these types of technologies, then you're gonna have more scenarios where AI is able to be used in some instances versus others, and then from that perspective, you'll have to either adjust how accessible it is in those certain scenarios, or whether or not you can use it like across the country or even across the globe. So it's definitely a lot of works here, and then it'll be interesting to see what this slide looks like in a year from now as well. Yeah, and then so really what we wanted to talk a little bit about this, and Kevin's kind of alluded to our journey at A&M, and we'll talk a little bit about this timeline, but also as a way of thinking through how you potentially could move or work within your organization to accomplish using or deploying generative AI tools. And so ultimately on the A&M side, about this time last year, we commissioned and worked on a business case for why we think that these tools would be useful or impactful for our tax practice. And so in addition to that, in August of 2023, we started releasing these very kind of discrete AI functions. So this was like a custom chat GPT that was secured within our A&M environment, so our professionals could use and look at those. And then from there, we started to continue to expand things. Amigo or A&M, right there, just for our code word for the project. We looked at like creating knowledge bases that were that had a specific context and wouldn't go outside of that context. And so we started working through that. And then Sage was our talk with documents. That seems to be a common use case. When there's a lot of content that's dropped very quickly, how can you quickly grab it and summarize that? And then the other aspect that we did was it wasn't just folks in the US who were very interested in this. We were doing and releasing this across the globe. So we released the UK and Australia, and then that whole process was a big journey in talking with internal teams, legal, IT, and support, and how can we create tools for our team members to utilize and then deploy those safe and securely across the globe. And then ultimately in March 2024, we rebranded a lot of our solution under one umbrella called A&M Streamline. And that's really our flagship model that we use internally to see if there's opportunities that are out there. This is where you can try things out. So if you're very curious about, can AI do this? This would be a scenario where you can look at that. And it's got 5 features that are associated with it. Chat, this is our kind of private chat GPT model or chat functionality that's associated with that. And then document analysis, where you can upload documents and ask questions or generate a series of prompts against those. Knowledge bases for us was where we took a lot of our internal tax policy or tax documents and then put them in one spot so that we potentially can have a knowledge base that people can go out and reach for. So if you want to know specific things about A&M tax within there, you can go ask those. Those are policy documents that you have. Great use case that's there. And then the one that keeps getting used quite a bit, although it's hard to find the use case for it, but a lot of people like to use image creation. And I think image creation is going to continue to advance, especially when you start pairing that with legal entity data and other things that are there. I don't think it's there just yet, but for filling white space in for PowerPoints and other areas where you can do that, it's been a great place. They create royalty-free graphics for you to put in, so that works out well too. And then the last one is really our transcription tool. This is kind of our first point solution, and kind of thinking through how we take a lot of the large data sets that we have and put that together. And so transcription is what it does is, if you record meetings, you can take the transcription from those tools, and then it's designed to be in conjunction with a project. So it's not just for single meetings. That's, you can use Microsoft Copilot for that. But what transcription does is takes a project and a project management methodology and meeting notes across that project and then puts those together. So when it's generating content, it's not generating content just from one meeting, but really holistically from the project. Great new tool, and we're continuing to grow use cases and point solutions from this going forward.
So with that, we're going to launch our next polling question, which is, how are you feeling about generative AI in the tax function? Are you excited, hesitant, concerned, and fearful? On the generative AI front, what I will also say is, as Cody noted, people play with the images. I do that as well, as particularly like in the PowerPoint setting, but how am I getting to generative? And so I actually use it to create the prompt to then create the image. So I'm sort of explaining what exactly do I want. It creates the prompt, and you can play with that prompt to then use the AI to create the image. So you're sort of using it as a 2-step process when you're not exactly sure exactly what you want to say. You have an idea in your head of what you want to accomplish. while they're answering this question, Cody, we got a question from the audience about, do you see AI replacing outsourcing in the future? And I know this probably relates to the AI agents and the humanoid AI that you see, but any thoughts that you have about AI and outsourcing?
Yeah, so right now, and we'll get into this in kind of the next section of the presentation too, but there's still a lot of concern over AI that's there. I mean, in the future, I think things are moving in that direction where I don't know if they'll fully replace outsourcing, but they might take different functions within an outsourcing model and be able to facilitate those that's there, or even reduce the necessity or the the ask that you're bringing to an output model that's there. So it's I think that as more people get into the more tax professionals get into training and creating these AI agents, that may increase an opportunity, but right now I still think we're a little ways from that. And with that, we'll kind of jump right into this next section that's right here. So again, why are we continuing to talk about generative AI? So there's this graphic is, I really like it. Bob Lefori linked it to me. He's the leader of our Amplify practice here at A&M. And in the circle here, you've got kind of three different areas. You've got companies on the outer ring, investors on the middle ring, and then R&D hubs in the middle. But each little graphic here represents more or less an organization that is focused on AI tools. So with that, you have over 50,000 companies that are really AI specific companies across the globe. You have 20,000 investors, and then you have 2,500 different research hubs, whether that's open source, government entities, other things along those lines that are really focusing on the advancement of AI technologies. And so, and this number we expect to even get bigger over the future. So forecasted, looking at 200 billion by 2025, like this is a really big number. And there's a lot of people that are really dedicating a lot of time, energy, and money into figuring out how this can work. So the reality of it is, it seems like AI and generative AI, because it's going to be a part of our lives in the future, it's definitely going to be a part or a component of the tax function and tax compliance going forward. And then on the next slide, you're seeing, you're seeing this right here is probably the more telling item that's here. You're seeing rapid advances in AI's capabilities and what it's able to do. So your top line there is your human performance at 100%. And then this is looking at very different functions within AI, from handwriting, language recognition, to code generation on the far right and the deep red. These are advancements that we're seeing in AI. So when they release a new language model, they're able to do benchmark testing and compare that not just to other AI or large language models, but also to like human intelligence and other areas that are out there. So the fact that you're seeing a lot of these, this graph drive increase towards reaching at like a human level, like in performance, is a great indicator that they're going to continue to grow and they're going to continue to advance. And then in some instances, they're going to do things beyond what a human could do in that situation. And so in light of that, this really kind of, again, points more and more towards, hey, we should give this type of tools and these technologies, an honest evaluation and how they can assist within the tax function. But continue to grow and continue to advance on there is really the big area that's there. But along those lines, as it gets closer and closer to human performance, you think you would be getting moving to the place where everybody's happy, they're excited about using it, but the question becomes, is it helpful? Is it hype? This is something that we'll have to think through and think through that together here on the webcast, and be very interesting to do this. So is this helpful? Is this hype? there's a survey results that kind of came out within this year looking at generative AI in the professional service space. And, sadly, the answer is, well, it's both helpful and it's also hype, meaning where when looking at the results, there's a lot of people that are very split on generative AI solutions within their industry. So just looking at these stats on the screen here. So really you have 44% of people who are very hopeful or excited about generative AI in industry. So pretty much half of us are very excited about it, and then the other half are not excited or hesitant or even concerned about what these tools might look like. And then it gets even more interesting with our middle graphic here is that the same folks said about 81% of it would apply to their job. So there's some component to your job or some apply to their work where they feel as if generative AI could provide some assistance. And so you're already seeing that. If every other person says it's helpful or it's all hype, but a lot of people are seeing that it can provide value for their work. But then on the far right, it's even more telling. Only really 23% of organizations are working with generative AI tools right now. So people are split. They say it can work on their job, but only 1 out of 5 people or 1 out of 4 people are working with them actively right now in their job. So what can we rightfully conclude based off of these results? It's hard to tell, and so right now it seems to be very polarizing. But I think even for those who see it as something as hesitant or concerning, they do see some applicability to their job, and so or to their work, and that may be different aspects of your job, whether that's or it's the actual tax work that are there, but they see definite opportunities where they can or generative AI can be leveraged as part of their work. So in conclusion, sorry, go ahead.
It's actually interesting, right? Because when you actually go back to the polling questions that we've had, right? So 52% of the audience is excited about using generative AI. But then we also have 53% of the audience that is currently not using it. So we have a portion that's currently using it, a portion of it that's currently working on it, but then you have like the majority is not using it, but a majority of it is exciting, which I really think plays out to exactly what this chart, what the survey results are showing. One thing before you get to your conclusion, I want to jump back because we did get a question of, is there a projection of how much unemployment this is going to create? And I think the role that we have with regards to AI and what we're seeing is it's not necessarily saying that we're going to be replacing. It's going to be what is the role that people have is going to be different, right? And so even, for example, when I was saying, oh, okay, well, when I put in an input and I say, okay, let's now translate this to a language, it's not precise. Like it is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, but it's not going to be like, okay, it's written as if it's a natural speaker. So you're still going to have a natural speaker doing an overview and making sure it reads right. Similar to when, are we actually recognizing the handwriting? Well, it's going to make a call, right, as to whether or not it's what this letter is. It may not be exact. Now, can that matter? Well, in some places, it could be a big difference between an A versus an I or something, some other letter. In other places, okay, it can guess what the word is, and so it fills it in. So the role that we have in using AI and what it does for our jobs, I think, is going to ultimately change, right? It's not just saying, oh, us as practitioners or us working in the industry are going to say, well, we're going to be out of a job because it's going to do everything that we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the role change, just to echo that, I mean, I see that as probably the biggest component that's there. And, really to try to substantiate that for those who asked the question is, everyone's still split on this. And so because of that, like it's not gonna, I see it as kind of it's gonna augment roles as opposed to replace things or even do things along those lines. So, and then there's also, one of the reasons, if you look at why people are concerned, the biggest turn, like say for the tax profession, is just inaccuracy or information being wrong. And so that is, a huge driver as to the adoption of a lot of this. So, you're seeing areas where you might be able to, Kevin made kick it back over, not kick back over to you, but one of those things where, well, how are you using it a lot? Well, I know you and I have talked and you're using it a lot in image generation, but I don't really think you're using it a lot in, research and generating content and things along those lines. And so to some extent, there's an aspect of it that you're using. Your role in terms of how you prepare for presentations and other things have changed, which does provide value, but you're still looking at it. I don't think you're looking at it holistically from a, well, this can replace Kevin Jacobs' mind and his experience and his knowledge of the tools that are there too. So I think thinking it from that perspective is the way to go. It doesn't have to be your tax role or job function that's there. Even your day-to-day job, there may be areas where generative AI can be helpful or other tools can be helpful too.
And what I will say is, Cody, I do use it beyond just image generation.
Yes.
There are certain uses. I mean, so for example, I think it's really important. I've grown up that like if you have a very passionate, heated disagreement and you're going to send an email that you probably don't want to send, but you really want to send it right now. If you run it through AI and you say, this is my draft email, and I'm trying to be polite, but I'm trying to like get my point across, like it can help you with tone, it can review things. It also really helps with, for example, hey, I'm trying to set up these procedures. Can you help me? Like, I'm not sure where to start. Now, to that end, and it'll be interesting to hear in about 10 minutes, Betty's view on how Wolters Kluwer is applying AI is, I've had some hesitations even in our internal of utilizing it for research. Or for example, hey, we just got these proposed regulations that got dropped on related party partnership. What do you think that people should do? And it was really great because it was, this is what the AI said. It said, okay, well, this applies to related party transactions. To avoid these regulations, you should not engage in related party transactions. And I'm like, that's great. I'm just going to tell all my clients that you should just not engage in related party transactions. So there is this back and forth of like, we still need to see advancements in that area. And there's still going to be, you need to be thoughtful in what the prompt is, right? I can't just say, tell me everything I need to know, and they're going to decide what they need to know. So if you then start driving and drilling in further, exactly getting what you are, because even though we're seeing on the screen, in certain contexts, it's greater than 100% human performance, which I think is ironic. Just to note that grade school math is not, because we normally think of like computers, robotics, math is like where it's all started. But there has to be a person behind it, right? And we're going to still continue to have that. We're going to continue to have the evolution.
Yeah, and really just kind of come back to this one right here from a conclusion standpoint is I think a year later, everyone is still a little undecided about these tools and how to apply them. I think that the use cases are continuing to grow, but there still tends to be more of a watchful eye that's on these things. And so kind of with that, we'll kind of go to the next, on our next slide, we'll kind of look at like, where are you on this journey or starting this journey that are there? And really, going back to the statistics, I think that this really kind of captures like the three different buckets of people where we are. So you're either a dog person on the right or the far right or left of the screen. You're either on your way, you found a use case for it, you're doing it. As Kevin mentioned, maybe that's for your specific role or even for like support functions within your day-to-day, but you're doing it right away. Or you're like a lot of people, you're in the middle there, is you're in the watching category. So you're not a dog, you're a cat, you've got a watchful eye, you're very cautious, and you've got an eye about looking about how these things are going to continue to advance and move around. And so, with that, we'll kind of launch right into our next poll question. And where are you on your generative AI journey? Are you on your way? Are you watching, or are you going to have to be thrown in unwilling later at a later date?
Great. And while they're doing that, you know, in the interest of time, like, what would you say? Okay, so I'm sort of watching. What do you think is going to be the pushing over the edge of okay, hopefully, if not this presentation, because we encourage everyone to start thinking about it if you haven't done it. Where do you think the aha moment will be?
You know, I think the aha moment for most folks is going to be taking something that they do on a day-to-day basis and seeing if using generative AI tools can do that. I think you're going to see it in the works that are there. So sometimes it's hard to look at a lot of the features that are out there and available for folks to really put in and say, oh, okay, well, you know, they're talking about they're generating full stream videos. Well, I don't do video. That's really cool that they can do that, but I don't. My day-to-day doesn't have me generating video or things along those lines. So trying to see these advancements, you know, kind of as they are become more relevant for individuals, I think is really going to be the key that's there. And in terms of not just adoption and using that. And then, you know, with that, there's a couple things that I really wanted to, you know, make a case for everybody on this is me getting a little bit and being slightly preachy about generative AI, but about where we're going in the future. And so I was thinking to myself, what is generative AI like? So I'm old enough to, whenever I started my driving journey, if you wanted to know where you were going, you either had to know where you were going or you had to have a foldable map in your glove box that's there. And so, and I think about where I am today now, and you know, you look at the advancement of GPS. It used to be, and it started slowly to where you had to buy like a separate GPS device, and you could get different voices for it, and it would read all your instructions and go everywhere that you put in your car, all the way to the GPS devices and navigation being integrated in the car. So now it's integrated in the phone where you can just plug it into any car and have a similar type experience with the map. So I really think that when you think about generative AI and its capabilities and the pace that it's moving, to me, it reminds me of that map in the glove box, because it's no longer there for me. So I don't keep one in there anymore, and maybe I should, but that part has changed. And I think that type of pace that we're at right now is, you know, if you're on the sideline or you're reluctant to get in there, then I think that is an area where you should consider moving into and looking at it. And then really the second thing that's there is prompting is a muscle. So when it comes to generative AI, how you get content that you would find helpful depends on largely how the data is prompted. And so this graphic in here is in here by accident because I used the image generator and I said, generate a folded map, you know, open in a glove box. And if you can see from the picture on the right, the glove box is not where the glove box should be. So the generative AI actually put it in the console that's right there, which, you know, for a lot of that, you can say, well, you can quickly dismiss these tools and be like, okay, well, this obviously got it wrong. This is not good. But I actually went back and reprompted it and it put it in its proper spot. And so this idea or concept of prompting, which we did talk about this last year, is going to be a growing need for people to do this. So if you're looking at this and you're one of the folks that are on the split side where you'll have to be thrown in or you're not impressed with generative AI technologies, you know, one of the things that you need to recognize is that the prompting or getting out of those is largely a product of what you put into it. And so you will have to train yourself and get better at utilizing these tools, because these tools are coming to a lot of tax professionals' software stacks that we're accustomed to, and they're going to be more prevalent within there. So I encourage you to get started on that journey. And as such, you know, we have here at A&M just have a quick 5-step process that we can either work with you through, or you can utilize these slides to help start your journey. But the first step is to educate, understand what you can't do within your organization, what tools are available to you and how to use them. And then the next one is come up with use cases and then create a business value that you're taking to your leadership that says, if we invest in these tools, we will be able to drive more value, reduce costs, find some business value in there that you can take to leadership. And then the biggest struggle I think that everyone's going to be challenged with is looking at data readiness, getting all of your data in your stack ready together and moving forward. And the last one is, now that you've got a plan, you got a roadmap, it's time to put it in place and get to work. And and as such, we would be happy to help you with that journey. And you can reach out to Kevin and I on that separately. But this is where I think you should start. Start with education. Get to know the tools, the things that are out there. It won't take you long to find education about generative AI tools. So, but with that, Kevin, kick it over to you, and then we can kick it over to Ben.
Yeah, so we do have another calling question. When do you plan to get started with incorporating generative AI into the tax compliance process? You're already using it, working on a plan after this year's tax return, or I still have concerns. Obviously, there's a host of questions there. But while they're answering that, Betty, we look forward to hearing about Answer Connect. We did get a question from the audience. It'd be interesting. They were asking about our opinions on the tax research side related to AI and any specific products currently available on a subscription basis. And so what should the audience know about Wolters Kluwer in general, and what about Answer Connect in particular?
Yeah, so I'm going to show you today an example exactly of that in the tax research space and how we've implemented generative AI within CCH Answer Connect. There are a few, most of the generative AI applications out there where you might do research are very general or based on the internet. They're not specific to your practice area or to tax. So there are a very small number of those that are specific to tax. And a nice thing about a large company like Wolters Kluwer is that we do have an AI development team that works across our organization. So they are working in not only the tax realm, but also legal and regulatory and health. So we're able, and in different countries as well. So we're able to learn from those other business units around customer needs and expectations. And so that's been a really great experience. That's where my background is, and working with our teams. I'm a product manager in that area. And so I'm going to show you today an example of how we've implemented generative AI most recently into tax research on our CCH Answer Connect platform. And I will share so that you can see what I'm seeing. All right. So in the development of CCH Answer Connect, we've had a long history of using AI to enhance our products and our internal workflows. And so I'm going to show you here some examples that utilize the technology. But before I do that, I just want to give you a little background on how our search is set up on CCH Answer Connect. You do have it broken out into different practice areas. So you'll notice that I'm within federal tax on that tab right now. And I've typed just a keyword, depreciation, into the search bar. And here, it's really meant to the search experience to guide you to on-point content to make your search experience as efficient as possible. So we have some frequently asked questions here that our editorial team has answered. We have different topical overviews that it's driving you to, and different search suggestions. Now, we know that not everyone knows what to enter into the search bar, and you may have experienced some, staff at if you're at a firm, who tend to go out to the internet to try to run searches. And so one of the really nice things that generative AI helps with is around natural language search and being able to type in questions in your normal speaking voice. And I'm going to run a search here around the depreciation topic. For this particular one, we have an editorial answer. So within our platform, you'll notice anytime you see the green label, what that is one of our human in-house editors has written a response to that and called out different sources so that you can dig in a little more into that particular question. And there is the ability to provide feedback directly within the system, as well as related questions that people also ask around this around your particular search. So where generative AI comes in, obviously our editors can't predict every question that a tax professional is going to ask. So I'm going to just type in here, when can I claim? I'm not a tax professional, so a practicing tax professional. So I'm just typing in a very broad question. When can I claim a bonus depreciation? And what you'll notice within our system is that the response that's generated is based on your specific subscription and also on the practice area. So if I were to switch in between the different practice areas, the AI generated response is going to change. And in some instances, for example, if there is no content on that topic in the international realm, we're not going to display an answer there. And you'll notice that the AI generated responses, to give a visual cue that AI generated it, we have created a purple label. So that'll, and then also some information here on exactly, what is an AI generated response. And it's based on the, trusted sources within your subscription. So it's the content that you're already relying on today for your tax research as a CCH Answer Connect subscriber. We do include it in all of our offerings. And there is the ability, as we heard during the polling, that there's kind of a split between those who are excited about it, those who are not, those who are using it, those who are not. So we do have the ability to turn it off as well. And what you'll see here in this particular example, it's providing some general information around what the rules are to claim bonus depreciation, and then types of property are listed out here, as well as noting that there are specific rules and requirements for each type of property and some additional information around that. And what you're seeing at the bottom, these links are the sources from which, within your subscription, the sources that were used to generate this particular response. So as Kevin mentioned earlier, we wouldn't expect this to be the be-all, end-all, that you're going to rely on the answer that's here on the screen, but being able to dig into that content, it's really a way to help jumpstart the research process, because then you can click through and go to that specific topic where that information lives. And then we have the way that we've set up Answer Connect. This is one of our topical overviews where we have on the left the navigation. You can see some of the different subtopics related to this. You can get to the key primary sources, as well as tools, practice aids, client letters, even CPE courses around this particular subject. And here you'll notice, even with code sections, we've tied those in a way that with topics, there may be more than one, code section that's touched. So we know with bonus depreciation, there's a relationship with section 179, and you can click through directly to get to that content. And we have that set up in a way where we call it our 360-degree view, so that you have access to everything related to that particular code subsection, be it the regulations, explanations, our additional editorial analysis focused specifically on that code subsection, cases, rulings, and other sources that you may find valuable, federal and state comparison, and then if you have journals or included journals or treatises that are part of your subscription, you can access that content here. That's what the More button is about. All right, so one of the other features I just wanted to make sure to mention around the search are the people also ask. So in this particular search, I'm gonna go back, asked about, how do I claim bonus depreciation? And what we've done that's similar to, you may have noticed that on, if you've used Google before, that there is a people also ask section, and that in our product is underneath the, can I get my mouse to the right place here, is underneath the question and answer box. And then if you expand any of those, it's surfacing up, okay, how do you claim bonus depreciation on qualified leasehold property or retail improvement property or restaurant property? So you can access any of that information as well and get to the sources. So it's really meant to expand what you may not have known to look for example, that's related to the topic that you were searching. And then the final note I wanted to make is around, if you have if you are out on the internet and doing searches, we also have a browser plugin that's available to all subscribers, which allows you to confirm, the information that you're looking at on the internet, where you may not be able to trust the source or know if it's been updated. And you have a window into a CCH Answer Connect where you can highlight terms and see whether or not, that information is correct by confirming it against our research product. So to that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Margaret for the last polling question and to wrap things up. And thank you so much for giving me a few minutes today to talk with you.
All right, well, thank you everyone, and thank you to the attendees. That wraps up today's webinar. I want to thank everyone for your participation. As a reminder, CPE credit will be posted within 2 to 4 business days. You will also receive an email with a link to the course evaluation and your certificate of completion. Today's webinar has been recorded, and you will receive an email with access to the link within 24 hours.